super excited to be here. I work in product here at Teachable. I'm calling in from Austin, Texas, so I will say y'all more than once, so apologies in advance. But really excited, honestly, to introduce our speakers for today, our panelists, Carole Bardasano, Jay Clouse, and Tiffani Claiborne. Jay, Carole, Tiffani, how are you? Welcome. How's it going?
I'm feeling good. Nice to be here.
Love it. Great. Well, let's go ahead and jump in. Again, today's going to be just pretty conversational. Just super excited to hear what you all have to say around growing your business. And this is, honestly, a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. My team pretty much, I would say, obsesses over this conversation of how do we look at success across creators, not just on Teachable's platform, but across the creator economy is so vast. And so for us, we're always thinking about how do we look at, folks like you all, our most successful creators, and try to define a blueprint for success, right? So what is it that you all are doing that makes you so successful? And how might we be able to take that same model and apply that to earlier stage creators, people who are just kind of figuring it out? So selfishly, really excited to dive into that. And from a product perspective, I definitely will be taking mental notes to take back to the team. So awesome to have you all here. But would love to just kind of give each of you the opportunity to introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about your businesses here on Teachable.
Sure. Who do you want to start? Do you want me to start?
Carole.
Sure, I'll start.
Yeah.
As I was getting ready to jump on this conference, I want everyone to know that I was in the same position as everyone who's watching 3 years ago. I was not a course creator by any means, and I attended one of these conferences and I was so inspired. I'm like, I'm going to do it. And in 3 years, I've launched 8 courses, some of them great, some of them not so great. I have learned everything. So I'm super happy to share everything today. So my name is Carole Bardasano. I'm the founder of The Digital Buzz. I have been in marketing 23 years. My background is in corporate. I was in corporate for 16 years. And then I decided to take a leap of faith and start my business, basically The Digital Buzz. And we have been teaching business owners how to monetize on Instagram with better marketing strategies. So we teach content strategy, sales strategy, and marketing strategy. And that is our signature course that we have now. And we have done absolutely everything with Teachable, which is incredible.
Amazing. I guess I'll go next.
We'll popcorn it over.
Go, Tiffani.
So popcorn. Thanks again, Carole. Hello, everyone. My name is Tiffani, and I truly, truly love what I do. I run the Speak English with Tiffani Academy on the Teachable platform, and I absolutely love Teachable. Like Carole mentioned, Teachable has really impacted my business in so many ways, so I'm truly looking forward to this conversation. To give you a little background, I actually used to work at NASA. I was a web developer. My life completely changed. I left my job at NASA and I went to South Korea to teach English as a missionary. And honestly, that experience changed my life. I realized that I love teaching English. So that brought me back to America after 10 years of living in South Korea. I came back to America and I realized that I didn't just want to help Korean learners. I wanted to help other individuals. So I started teaching online, found out about Teachable, and now I've helped well over 11,000 students in over 70 countries how to speak English with confidence. And that's just on Teachable alone. And I am so excited and passionate about what I do. And I want to continue with Teachable, helping other English learners speak English with confidence. So nice to meet everyone virtually.
That's awesome. It's hard to follow that up. Oh my goodness. I am not a rocket scientist. My name is Jay. I'm the founder of Creator Science. It's very meta. I study really impressive, accomplished creators like the folks we have here in the room, and I break down the patterns and trends I'm seeing to help other up-and-coming content creators break through. Started with a newsletter. It's got about 22,000 subscribers on it. A podcast called Creative Elements that has 1.5 million downloads. But I just like to nerd out across what creators are doing today, try to keep things timely and relevant, and it's been fun.
Awesome. Well, y'all, so happy to have you here. Really excited for this conversation. Again, let's let the conversation just flow where it may. I obviously have some questions that I definitely want to chat with you all about, but if there's any topics that just really interest you, things you want to keep talking about, build off of each other for sure. Let's see what we can unpack. But my first question for you all is I think here at Teachable, we're definitely on a mission to democratize not just learning, but teaching. I think, you all would probably agree that you don't probably fit the traditional teacher mold, but instead, kind of represent this new idea, right, of what it means to be an instructor. And so would love to hear a little bit about how you started down this path of sharing what you know with folks, and how did that lead you to Teachable specifically?
Yeah. So I'll share something that keeps people back. It holds them back, and that's thinking that they have to be a super expert to teach anything, anyone, anything. And that is not true. You don't have to be a master at every single subject in your niche to actually develop a course. And so for me, it was, I was teaching marketing, but even if you have 10% ahead of someone that you can help, you can develop a course and teach them along the way. And so sometimes it's like, oh, I'm not ready. I am not there yet. I don't have enough followers. I don't have enough, I'm not making enough sales. I don't have enough clients. And the truth is that everyone has been, in a situation where they just need to take that one step. And so if you're in a position now where you have some knowledge, you can help someone who is where you have been before. You understand those frustrations. And so for me, it was, one of the biggest things that I did was, okay, where have I really excelled in the last year that I could start adding to some people to save them time? So thinking about the pain points that most people have is how to save time and how to make money. Those are the two of the biggest pain points. And so whatever course that you're creating or thinking about, you need to think also about the marketing. A lot of people think about the course only, but I like to train people, course creators, to think about, how am I going to market this? Is there a market for this specific course? It's great that you have a passion for what you're teaching, but is this something that is needed? Is this an emerging market? Is this a hot market? Because if you're going to be creating a course about something that only you like, but there's no need for it, then it's going to be really hard for you to market that. And then the course is not going to be successful. You're going to think, I'm not a good course creator, I suck, and it's going to be the end of the road. So doing that market research before even creating the course, I find that is really key for success.
I'm not the leader of this meeting, but I want to say great points, Carole.
Thank you. Thank you.
To add to that, and to also answer the question about how I started on this path and how I found Teachable. So I mentioned briefly earlier that, I left NASA and went to South Korea to become an English teacher. While I was there, I realized that I actually enjoyed teaching. When I came back to America, I realized that, again, I didn't just want to help Korean students. So I actually started a YouTube channel. And some of those watching, maybe you know me from my YouTube channel. Right now, it has above 2 million subscribers. And I'm very happy because I'm able to help a lot of people. But I started on YouTube and my YouTube channel was growing. I was happy. My students were learning a lot. But I kept getting requests. Tiffani, we want more. Tiffani, can you help us more? And for those that know how YouTube works, you can post either once a week, every day. It's up to you how many times you'd like to post. But when you're trying to run a business, yes, ad revenue is great, but there comes a time when the ad revenue is just not enough to run a successful business. So I realized in order to serve my audience more, I needed to bring in more revenue. So that's when I heard about Teachable. And there are so many other teaching platforms, but there was something about Teachable. I did a lot of research and I ended up picking Teachable. Great decision. Never regretted it. And I started producing courses that went in line with the video lessons I already had on YouTube, but went deeper. And so students started to, trickle in saying, okay, now you have a program, and they were willing to pay for the program. And, I worked with a marketing person and it just exploded. And it was simply because I wanted to serve my customers more. And I realized in order to do that, I live in America, Washington, D.C., in Maryland area. In order for me to help more students around the world, I had to find a platform that would give me that ability to create more lessons, bringing the revenue I needed, but also giving me a platform that made it easy for my students, literally all around the world, to study. And they've been happy. So that's how I found Teachable.
Awesome. Love that. And definitely excited to dive in a little bit more into some of the details around, again, for all of you in terms of how you're utilizing Teachable's platform. And specifically, you mentioned Tiffani, like there's a lot of other platforms out there, right? But something drew you to Teachable. Would love to kind of talk from a business perspective around like, what is that something, right? So we'll definitely get there. Jay, would love to hear from you as well.
I grew up in a small town in Ohio, farm town. My parents, my sisters, my entire extended family were K through 12 teachers. And when I went to college, I didn't know what I wanted to be, but I knew I would not be a teacher. Come back to today, full circle, here I am, different model of teaching, but once again in the family business, I guess. So, what I've realized is the time that we're in right now to be a content creator and build a life as a creator, it's just unmatched. It's amazing. It's incredible. It's never been this easy before. Things will get easier in some ways, and in other ways, it's getting harder all the time also. So the sooner you get started down this path, the better. And if you are what I call a creator educator, where the content you're creating is for the betterment of somebody to learn a skill, improve themselves, learn something, then digital products and courses in particular are an incredible place to get started in building a sustainable revenue model to support you as a content creator. And I did the same thing as Tiffani. I looked at a whole lot of different course platforms. And one thing I really love about Teachable that I think moves the needle is the entire interface is fantastic, but the checkout pages in particular are a lot stronger than I see across the marketplace. So if you're trying to get somebody to purchase something, making a good last impression before they actually, make the purchase is really important. And I think Teachable really shines there.
Awesome. Very glad to hear that. I will be passing that along in products for sure. Awesome. Well, again, really excited for this conversation because it sounds like you all just have such different backgrounds, right, for us to dive into. And so it'll be interesting to see with such different backgrounds, right? Like where do those overlap? Like at what point in terms of those patterns of the success you've been able to see, right? Like what are you all utilizing that is similar that, and also that you can learn from each other. But I think, as we're talking about, obviously today is about business growth. I think it's important first just to understand, from each of you, how you're defining business growth specifically, right? Because I do think that can be different depending on the business you're running. So would love to hear from each of you how you're defining business growth. And then specifically, are there features on Teachable's platform that you're leveraging specifically to help you get to that level of growth?
I'll jump in here. My business is called Creator Science. So I really lean into data analytics metrics really strongly. On a monthly basis, I track a whole bunch of different KPIs, but namely, I'm looking at business growth in terms of revenue growth, secondarily looking at profit to say, okay, there's a lot of ways to grow revenue that may also count or may also include scaling costs. I don't want to do that. So I look at revenue growth, profit growth, and I also look at reach and impact across different platforms. What is the following size on these platforms, on my email list, on the podcast, on YouTube, on social media? How much is that growing on a monthly basis? Those are the main metrics I look at.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, Tiffani.
No worries. Thanks, Carole. To kind of piggyback on what Jay said, yes, revenue is, for any business owner, kind of the main thing that we look at. Something very interesting that happened to me, I experienced an extreme drop in signups, and also I lost quite a few students. Unfortunately, during the war, there were situations where students had to leave, and my business revenue dropped drastically. So my team and I, we were trying to figure out how can we increase the revenue? How can we, grow the business after having that extreme issue? The interesting thing was when we started focusing on our current clients. So I know business growth, it does refer to the revenue. I found that when I focus on my current clients, serving them better, asking them, hey, what do you like? What don't you like? What would you like more of? I've seen an increase in revenue to the point where I tripled my revenue several months ago after I started focusing on my community, asking them what they liked, what they didn't like. And some of the teachable features, again, for my clients, them being English learners, they're really focused on quizzes and seeing their progress and knowing what's going on. And when they watch my lessons, many of my lessons have captions. So I've had so many students say, Tiff, okay, I love the captions. I love that I'm able to speed up the video or slow down the video. And again, being in the English area, this is really, really useful for my students. And also I like that we're able to upload an unlimited number of videos. So these things actually do affect the business growth, my business growth, because they're making my current clients extremely happy. So I really appreciate that about Teachable.
Yeah, so if I may follow up on that, it sounds like, if I'm understanding correctly, a lot of that is of your success, right, is determined by engagement. Is that coming in the form of retention of those students, or is that more of a measurement of like satisfaction? How are you looking at that within the engagement realm?
Great question. So retention and also referrals. So what's happening is my current students are staying longer and they're also spreading the word. So I've been on some of my YouTube videos, which again, I integrate YouTube. I connected to Teachable by, in my videos, I'll mention, hey, if you want to study with me, go to my academy, which is Teachable, right? I've seen students in the comment section. I'll have a new person say, I love this video lesson. I'd love to be your student. Before I can even get to the comment, I've seen one of my students from my academy respond to the comment, you'll love her school, here's the link. And I think that's happening because I'm constantly trying to listen to their needs, trying to engage with them. And that's resulted in more new students and retaining the current students.
That's awesome. That word of mouth growth is really great to hear. That's sweet.
Yeah. So for me, what I would say is that most people see business growth as this, right? It's like an uphill, nonstop business growth. But the truth is that that's not accurate. A lot of business growth goes up, down, a little bit up, a little down, a little bit down. That's the most accurate way to see it. And when I think of Teachable, I think of all the courses that I've launched. And when you launch your first course, you need to know that you're not going to make $1 million in your first course. And that's okay. And so the great thing is that you have this academy that you brand yourself, that you put whatever courses, as many as you want, with as many lessons, as Tiffani said. And so you're going to be putting out courses, and then you're going to be creating iterations of the courses and understanding what's working, what's not working. And then you can start retiring courses until you really have something that you can scale. And so it's not going to be that first course that you're going to get, like everything from, and the perfect marketing and the perfect sales page. I really want people to understand, because it's a little frustrating when you see someone who's on their chapter 20 and then you want to be on their chapter 20, and it doesn't work that way. And so know that even if the first course doesn't work great, then you can take those learnings and adjust to the second course and to the third course. Maybe you have a mini course, maybe you have a longer course, maybe you have a course that's a little more technical, maybe you have something that's a little more basic, and you have different price points. You also want to have in your marketing something that has a lower friction entry point. And so maybe you have like a free masterclass that you can also host on Teachable. And so as you are going through your business, you can start saying like, well, this one is poor performer, I'm going to retire it, I'm going to focus on this one. And then this one is the one that I can maybe use to upsell to my current students. So we have over 4,000 students, and 60% of our students are repeat students. And that's exactly what you want. And so, but you're not going to do that with the first course. You're going to be doing different versions of different courses, and you're going to be perfecting that formula. And so it's important that people understand that it's a journey, but it's a journey that you yourself have to go through as you are, exploring what courses work, what there's a need of, what you can bring to the table. And then you are going to scale eventually, but it's not going to be, okay, this is my path growth, like it's always upward, because it's not true. And so I want to be realistic in that sense, but it's also such an adventure. It's also such an experience, because you are going to be in the trenches. And one of the best things in marketing is to be in the trenches, because when you know what are those pain points, how people are communicating about your specific niche, you're going to be able to develop a much better sales page, which is key for sales. And you're going to be able to develop much better content in your social media platforms, on your email marketing. And so talking to people, like I remember one of my courses that didn't work. This was 2 years ago. And it was really hard to sell that course. And I got on the phone to people who were sort of interested, but didn't end up converting. And I got on 21 different phone calls, Zoom calls, because I really wanted to understand, why aren't you taking the course? Why aren't you doing it? And one of the key takeaways that I got is it was too long. It was like 12 modules. And people were like, listen, I like it. I just don't have time for 12 modules. And it was painful because I had spent 5 months creating it, but it was like, I need to really cut out the fluff. I need to cut out all the fat. And it was extremely useful for me because then I ended up creating new courses. And the course we have now, which is called Run Your Instagram Like a CEO, is only 5 modules. It has everything that people need. And that's exactly what I needed to hear. People did not need to be 5 months learning Instagram. They needed to learn it in 2 weeks. And so, that it is a work in progress, but it's also really fascinating to go through.
Follow-up question to that, Carole, and actually for everyone here, I'd love to hear, you mentioned, like growth is not linear, right? It ebbs and flows. And so I'm curious, when, do you all have any examples or good, scenarios that you can speak to of when you have seen some of those large spikes, or when you have seen kind of a raise in, again, if that's sales, if that's in terms of retention, however you're measuring success, do you have an example that you can share with us of a time that you saw a lot of success and what drove that?
Guess I'll respond to this one. It actually goes to what Carole was explaining about looking at your current product and then breaking it down to the most important pieces and taking out the fluff. That's exactly what happened to me. When I first started, I had literally uploaded tons of videos. And yes, some students were coming in, but they weren't staying as long. New students weren't coming in. The referrals weren't actually happening. So I started asking my current students, and they let me know what they wanted. And I literally changed the entire setup. So initially it was a course, but I literally changed the entire setup based on their feedback. And I switched it to daily lessons, to where it was set up every day of the year. There's an individual English lesson. Now, just to explain, there were literally over 500 lessons, right? So I want you, for those that have used Teachable, it's very easy to use, which is really a blessing when you have to change all of that information. So I had to reformat the entire course to set it up basically on a daily plan. That drastically changed my business. Now students were coming in understanding immediately, okay, she has a lesson for every single day. I can follow her. And it was so interesting because that's how I teach on my YouTube channel. I always have a plan. I always have certain steps to follow, and students enjoy that way of studying. So my current students were saying, Tiff, can you do the same thing for the Academy? So even though it was a lot of work, like Carole mentioned, when you listen to your clients, when you listen to your customers and actually make the changes, it will greatly affect your business. So for me, honestly, Sam, that had the biggest effect on my business, and it continues to be something that each of my students love, switching it over to a daily lesson plan.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I was gonna add for me, something that really created like a huge uptick was adding a live element to the courses. Because some people, the feedback that we got was, oh, is this self-paced? Do we get support? People want to have like a little bit of hand holding. They don't want to feel that, it's up to them. People need accountability. You'll be surprised. And so adding the accountability factor to an online course is super important for sales. And so what we did, we added live sessions on a monthly basis. And that really significantly also increased our sales. Yes, it is a commitment from me. I come in and for an hour, and I will do a theme around what's trending, the algorithm, different things on Instagram. Even though it does represent a little bit more time commitment, it is worth it because at the end of the day, none of us are here just to sell a course, take your money and run away. We really want people to learn and to get transformed and to actually make change. And so the more you can do that, the more you can actually create success rate in other students, the better it is for you in the end. And so anything that any feedback that you can get from students as to what's going to help that success rate, that is going to give longevity to your academy and to your school.
I think about something I've heard a friend of mine, James Clear, say a bunch of times, which is at some point with his book, which has sold like 10 million copies, he said, I've told everyone I can tell. Like at some point, the book has to kind of market itself and move beyond your sphere. So the best way to get these prolonged growth curves is by making a really great product that impacts people, as Carole's saying, that they then want to tell other people about. I do think that there's place to try and influence the initial launch of the course in a meaningful way. And so anytime I launch a course on Teachable, I follow kind of the same roadmap now, which is I will build out the landing page with a skeleton of the curriculum. Like I'll start by making an outline of the curriculum so I can make placeholder chapters and lessons inside of Teachable. I can make a full sales page. People can land there, see exactly what the course is going to be, and I'll say this is on pre-sale now. And it's on pre-sale for 50% off until the first X number of people buy it. At that point, it'll be on pre-sale for 25% off until the course is finished. So I actually end up with like 3 spikes because I'll go to my list and I'll say, I'm making a new course. You can buy it now. It's 50% off until the first 10, 20 people buy it. I'll see a spike. I'll say, okay, we hit our minimum threshold. I'm going to build this out now. You can still get the course for 25% off until it is finished. So I'll get a second spike. And then when it's done, I'll go to the list and say, course is done. You can get immediate access now. And here's where. And hopefully through that process, you tell enough of your people that you get people in there who have a good experience, and now they are the base from which word of mouth spreads.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Jay, something that I would love to ask you specifically is, kind of building off of that is you've definitely built quite an ecosystem between podcasts, newsletter, courses, workshops. Would love to get a little bit of the behind the scenes of how have you pooled all of those tools together? How are they working off of each other to help you grow your business, not just on Teachable, right? But generally, right? Like how are you leveraging each of those individual pieces to kind of get a sum that's greater than the parts, right?
It's a work in progress for sure, because even the things that I'm doing well, I feel like I could be doing better. And there's lots of things that I feel like I'm not doing well. But, I look at my business as email being really the core of it. And so all the work I do on social media, that is for the benefit of getting people to email. Email is where the predominant marketing effort for courses comes from me. Now, of course, I can record ad reads and put them in the podcast, and I do that. But even the podcast, I'm trying to get people over to email. And once you're on email, I'm trying to get you over to the podcast. And periodically, I will have campaigns for the courses that, again, mostly happen in email, but I have been having a lot more success this year marketing my courses on social media, predominantly on Twitter. That's just a platform I feel more equipped to use well. But the wonderful thing about social media is the interest that other people take in the course is very public. And it starts to feel like kind of a party that's happening, that people say, okay, well, this other person that I know and respect is excited about this course, just said they enrolled, so now I want to do that. So I'm finding there's a lot of benefit to leveraging the momentum you can build publicly on social media. And Twitter's been good for that for me this year, but I am abysmal at Instagram, starting to pick up LinkedIn a little bit, but the short form video mediums just haven't been something I'm good at yet.
Something tells me Carole can help you out.
I was going to say, we should talk.
That's pretty funny. Well, Carole, actually, on that note, I am curious to hear from you. I think, working in the social space, it sounds like when you first got started, perhaps a little skeptical in terms of having so many different courses popping up about your industry. I would love to hear what kind of intentional steps did you take to build your content and your business in such a way to break through the noise of a saturated space? How are you working to stand out in that way?
Yeah. So the first thing that I did was really identify what was the competitive gap in the market. Everyone is teaching Instagram growth. Everyone is teaching how to get more likes, more views. But what we saw is that no one was teaching how to grow a business on Instagram. And so that took about a year of research, a year of feedback, understanding what was the true need. And so differentiation in marketing is the most important thing. For me, is the biggest business plan that you can have is differentiation. And so developing content around that was really the main strategy. And so for me, launches in general and the business strategy comes down to three things. It is audience building, engagement rate, and the trust factor. And so we had to start with building the audience, the right audience, because if you have a lot of followers, but they can't buy, they don't have purchasing power, you have no followers. Mm-hmm. And so that part of attracting the right audience is super important. I don't care if someone has 100,000 followers, if they can't buy, or if you have a lot of freeloaders, that's really not going to do much. And so we start from the attraction part of building the audience. So audience building on and off the platform, including email, but you do that. We teach how to do that on Instagram, through Instagram with lead magnets. The second thing is the engagement rate. You really need to work on your engagement rate, because even if you put out the best content and no one sees this, you have no content. And so working on engagement strategies is very important in order for your content eventually to be pushed out. And then the third thing is the trust factor. Listen, trust is the best sales strategy. It is. And so why are you a credible source for teaching this? Why are you able to say that you can deliver this transformation? And so working on content that builds trust, that goes beyond just giving information, tips and tricks, because everyone can just put out content that's Googleable. But working on trust content, on nurturing content, on evergreen content is really very important for that phase that happens right before the launch. And so whether you're doing an evergreen course or you're doing a live launch, those things really matter when it comes to marketing and social media.
Yeah, I think that's a huge piece as far as the trust factor, and would actually love to hear from everyone just in terms of how do you build that trust? How are you doing that? I think you mentioned, Carole, like through your content. What does that look like, right? Like, how are you establishing that credibility? Would love to hear, because I imagine it probably varies pretty greatly across industries. And so would love to hear what that looks like.
Yeah. So for me, just to on that point, I actually did a post today, a reel today about it, which was people think that just giving information is how you build trust. And the thing is that information is a commodity. Information really is everywhere. You can find information on Google, on YouTube. I mean, we all know how to search it. And so it's not about information, it's about insight. And so you really have to shift the mind of people or challenge conventional thinking. And that's where your experience comes in. If you're just giving information, you're going to be really required to compete on price. And that honestly feels awful. And so in order for you to really stand out is you need to understand, okay, what it is that I bring to the table and add that value factor, that experience. I call them belief shifting kind of post, which is you are challenging the way that things are done in the industry, but not for the sake of annoying people or for the sake of getting engagement or for the sake of being polarizing, which a lot of people are doing, but really for the sake of showing why you believe this to be untrue, a myth in the industry. And so building that trust is really important so that you can show that you have been down this path and you have a different experience, that you can show people how to think. And so at the end of the day, really those aha moments are really why people convert. They think, oh, okay, wait a second, Jay has a different opinion. I had not thought about something like that. And so adding that factor really is what starts building your credibility. It's not going to happen through one post. I really want to say that. It's going to happen through the continuous delivery of valuable content. We also call it topical authority. It's not just about having authority, but having topical authority. And so you want to master one specific thing instead of having, a little bit of knowledge of everything. It's better to go deep than to go wide with your niche. And so spend time. I tell my students, once a week, go read books, do conferences, do whatever it is, and really think about your subject matter. Don't just repeat what you're reading. Go test it. Even if you fail, at least you can say that you tested this. That's how you create authority in your content. It really makes you an expert. I mean, there's a reason why experts get paid more than generalists.
I wanted to add to that as well, Sam, three things. So being sincere, being consistent, and also differentiating yourself. So being sincere, it's so interesting. Even though we are online, people can tell if you're sincere or not. Even though they're sitting watching you on video, they can tell what kind of person you are by watching you. So when you're trying to build that trust, you need to be true to yourself, because the person on the other side of the screen can read you like a book. Being consistent also builds trust. If you post once a week, okay, if you post once a day, whatever your schedule is, make sure you're following it, because that builds trust. And the last thing is differentiating yourself. And this is something that has been very interesting. So again, in my niche, I'm teaching English. And something I say that is totally opposite of many other English teachers is the fact that I do not teach grammar. I have never taught grammar, and I won't teach grammar. And when you say something that strong, it gets people's attention. Wait a minute, you teach English. How do you not teach grammar? Now, I help my students improve their grammar through interesting methods, right? But when you differentiate yourself, when you're in a market that is so saturated with other amazing creators, you have to make sure people understand what makes you different while you're being sincere, while you're being consistent, and then you're differentiating yourself at all times.
100%. I can imagine too that as far as drawing that line in the sand for you from a business model perspective, in terms of really keeping a focus towards what it is that you teach, right? And I think that I'm sure that definitely helps you, right, in terms of that other piece, right? But as far as just keeping your business model pretty straight, I'm sure that's pretty beneficial as well.
Yeah, it definitely is.
These are great answers. I don't have a whole lot to add, but I will say, for the last several years, I've really been known as a community guy. My biggest revenue driver is a membership community that I have. My most successful course lately on Teachable has been my course on building a membership. And when I was building that course, what I started to do is think through the lens of, what if this wasn't online? Every time you're wondering, how do I do this thing online? I like to say, well, how do I do it offline? So how do you build trust with somebody in the real world offline? And as Tiffani is saying, I think a lot of it comes from sincerity. People have evolved to be able to read people and, how you're communicating with them. I use the word vibe a lot lately, honestly. I think you can differentiate on your vibe and the way that you're coming across in a sea of other people that are doing this. But then I also think trust comes from referrals from other people you already trust. It comes from follow through, as Tiffani was saying, of keeping your schedule and being consistent to that schedule. When you say you're going to do something, do you follow through on it? That's what leads us to trust people. And I think there's also a little bit of risk involved. When people are taking some level of risk, which may even just be the time to watch your content or to try out something that you have suggested, does that risk come with a satisfying payoff? And, if I'm taking risk, even in just putting my time and attention towards what you're putting out there, and that is not satisfying, I'm not going to trust you enough to do it again.
I wanted to add a couple of things regarding trust that we have also noticed. Of course, number one is social proof. Sharing social proof, that is word of mouth marketing. It's the absolute best way to really establish trust with other students. So we work really hard on our social proof. We actually created a sole landing page just to put all the social proof, all the videos of everyone. Getting the reviews is sometimes a little bit of a hassle. You all know this because you have to choose people and then you have to edit it and you have to upload it. But it really is such a conversion machine because people want to see what other people trust. And the other thing is to really stay true to your promise. So we had a student that after she enrolled, she said, I am glad you kept your promise that, because sometimes, you'll do the doors closed at midnight kind of thing. That's one marketing strategy that people use, or the price will increase at midnight kind of thing. And the student told me, listen, I'm glad you did that because I joined another course that said that, price was going to increase and it didn't. And I felt that it wasn't real and it wasn't authentic, that it was, manipulation. And so it's really important in your marketing that you really stay true to your word. If you say that you're closing doors tomorrow, close doors tomorrow, because that's really going to affect, your brand, and it's going to tarnish you in a way that is going to be very hard for you to come back from that. So keep on your promises in your marketing. If there's only two left, there's only two left. If you're only going to keep this price for one day, it's only one day. And so making sure that people understand, listen, and also it helps them take action next time. If they know that you for real are going to increase price and the price will never be this low again, it should never be this low again. And so that part is really important, staying true to your promises.
Love that. Well, thank you all for those answers. Definitely quite a bit to think about there. Tiffani, I wanted to switch gears and just ask you really quick here. You mentioned you built a huge community on YouTube. I think you mentioned over 2 million subscribers, which is awesome. Bravo, by the way. But would love to kind of understand how you grew that channel to what it is. And then I think you spoke to this a little bit, but would love to dive a little deeper into how you've leveraged that to drive students to your courses, specifically on Teachable.
Sure thing. So it always goes back to serving my audience. And what happened about maybe a year and a half ago, I, was still being consistent, being sincere, differentiated myself. I was posting consistently, but my numbers were kind of leveling off when it comes to the number of people watching my videos, and I really wanted to help more people. So I started analyzing each of my videos, which I always do, but I went a little bit deeper. And I found that there were certain videos that students were responding to more. And I actually created this entire list of the top videos that were helping students by their responses and by the numbers of views. And I came up with about 10 different categories of videos. And I literally started creating videos that matched those categories. And my channel just exploded again. It was already kind of going like this, but it went like this. I hit 1 million. Then several months later, I hit 2 million. Like, it's just continuing to grow. And it again goes back to paying attention to the lessons that really are serving my audience. And that affects my Teachable membership, because I have students that are already in the membership, but if these lessons over here are helping my YouTube audience, then they're going to help my current members as well in Teachable. So I'm still, for each video, mentioning, hey, if you want to study with me, if you want to actually be my official student, you can join my academy. I do have lead magnets. I know earlier Carole mentioned lead magnets. Those are amazing. It's a great way to kind of introduce someone to your ecosystem outside of a public platform. So I do use a lot of PDFs, lead magnets, and eventually, after sending emails, draws the students to enter into my academy. Something recently I've actually started that has really been helping is I close the doors now. Before, my doors were always open. Students could join anytime they wanted. But now the doors are closed for about 2 months. 1 to 2 months, depending on the program. And so now there's this sense of urgency. Students know when the doors open, the price, again, as Carole mentioned, is going to be higher than it was the last time. So let me enroll now. When the doors are closed, you can't get in. So again, I mentioned these things on my YouTube channel, and because I'm focusing on trying to serve the audience and giving them what they actually need and what is helping them, it also in the end affects my academy on Teachable as well.
Tiffani needs to launch a course on how to grow on YouTube because that's really impressive.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, that was really good.
I'm actually working on some videos to help business owners. I'm very passionate about serving others, and that's not just English learners. Like, I love helping people. So I want other business owners, like those watching this right now, anybody can do it. It's really about serving your audience and just understanding the strategies to do that. So thank you for the compliment, Carole. I appreciate it.
Of course. So impressed.
Awesome. Well, one last question for me, and then I do want to leave a little bit of time. I believe we have 15 minutes or so for Q&A. But I think one of the themes that I always seem to get when I speak with successful creators, and today has been the same, that always fascinates me is, we've spoken about trust. We've spoken around, Tiffani and Jay, you've both mentioned analytics in terms of customer segments, right? And how do you look at your students? And so one of the themes that comes out for me always is the relationship between creator and student is always strong, and it's always strong in different ways. And so I would love to hear from each of you just in terms of how do you all know and understand your students? How do you learn from your students? How do you get to know your students? How are you gleaning insights from those students to kind of, again, leverage your business growth?
Guess I'll start. So several years ago, I was trying to do that. I wanted to hear from my students in real time, especially the ones that were already in my academy. And I started using a platform, Telegram. It's kind of, like other messaging programs, but I started a Telegram channel. And so my students that are paying members in Teachable are a part of that Telegram channel. And it's just a place for them to have conversations in English, to get to know each other. And I kind of just am there to observe as their teacher. I just watch the conversations. But what was happening was, as I was kind of reading through the conversations, I saw comments, oh, I like this, or hey, this part is a little bit challenging. And it helped me to tweak the course based on what they were saying. But more recently, I realized that I wanted to go a bit deeper. I didn't just want to observe conversations. I wanted to speak directly with students. Now, I'm sure that Carole and Jay can agree. As your business grows, it's very challenging to speak to people one-on-one. Earlier, Carole mentioned that I think you had 21 different Zoom calls, and that's a lot of calls, but that's also impressive because you care so much. So I was trying to figure out a way to really speak to my students one-on-one. And so I started once a month. I have about 6 slots, and students is kind of first come, first serve. I use Calendly and Zoom, and students can sign up. And for about 30 to 40 minutes, I literally sit and I just talk to them. Tell me about your experience as an English learner. Tell me why you joined the academy. Tell me what you like, what you don't like, what would you like more of? And yes, it's given me insight to help me improve the academy, improve the courses that I have. But it's also helped me really love my audience even more. I'm getting to know them as individuals. We're online, so sometimes people are just numbers, not intentionally. We just don't have time to speak to them. So this has helped me get to know my students even more. And it's increased my desire to want to help. And it's given me a lot of insight. So those two things.
For me, my thoughts on insights and data in general, even though I love it, you have to take it with a grain of salt. It doesn't tell the full story. And this is what I also teach people when it comes to Instagram. Instagram insights, views, likes, that doesn't really tell the full story when it comes to business or attribution. And so we have 2 spaces for a community. We have an exclusive Facebook group and we have the live sessions. And adding those, which is something we did not used to have 2 years ago, but we added it for our most successful course, which is Run Your Instagram Like a CEO, has added such an element of live feedback. And also remember, people are going through things on their own, on their business. There's, different habits that are changing, consumptions when it comes to content. And so having that real-time feedback, yes, it is time consuming, but it really helps you refine your offer. But not just the course. Again, it helps you refine your marketing. That really helps you with continuing to sell the course. And so being there and absorbing that social sentiment is absolutely key for your offer, and also if you're developing new offers. So having that those 2 platforms. And what we do now is that we have our monthly coaching sessions on Zoom, and then we upload it on Teachable. And so anyone who is joining any new students, they always ask me, like, do I have access to the previous calls? Because that's important to them. And so it's all hosted on Teachable. They can go through all the Zoom calls besides all the modules and all the PDFs and everything that you guys are able to host, which, by the way, some people may not know, but you guys can do, text and PDFs and different attachments. And so the flexibility in terms of formats of the things that you can host in your portal is really amazing. And so people know that once they're in, they have everything they need, including access to the coaching sessions, which is pretty cool, honestly, Teachable to do that.
I'm a big fan of whatever feedback loops you can generate. So I think a lot of creators, they really optimize for everything up to the point of purchase, and then they disappear. And it's kind of like, all right, you have the course and everything is on you now. And I think you can do a lot more post-purchase to try and create a feedback loop with your students. Things in email, things in the course itself. Every course that I make, the end of the course has a lesson with a thank you video and an embedded feedback form saying, hey, can you rate this and can you give me feedback on it? but not everybody makes it to the end. So having an email that goes out after a couple days to say, hey, have you been able to log in and get started? Is there anything I can do to help? Just hit reply. And doing that, over time, over weeks, over months, you can do this and say, have you gotten through the course? Have you gotten stuck? Is there anything I can do to help you? That will start to give you some really rich feedback and detail into how you can improve the course itself as a product.
Awesome. Definitely agree. Again, like lots of themes around engagement, trust, right? So I appreciate all of you humoring me with my questions. I definitely want to open it up to the audience and give folks the opportunity to submit questions for everybody here. So I'm just going to pull up my list of questions here that I have from the chat. Looks like the first one. Can each of you identify the point at which you crossed into profitability? When did it happen? And which specific Teachable products helped you cross into profitability?
I'll kick things off here. I was profitable pretty early on, but it wasn't because I was selling courses, it's because I was also selling services. So if you're building the content creator business model and you need to be generating an income immediately, meaning that you don't have a full-time job or a part-time job or some other source of income, then selling services is a really smart way to go. Now, at the time, Teachable didn't have their coaching part of the product, and now they do. So you can even sell services through Teachable now. And I think in doing that, you could probably expect to be profitable very quickly if you're willing to do the still hard work of relationship building and direct sales in some cases, in my case. In terms of profitability just from courses and leveraged sources of income, for me, it was probably close to 3 years. I was, of course, making sales before then, but profitability in terms of like replacing my income that I was making in services probably took me about 3 years.
For me, the first course that I launched, it broke even. I have to say that I probably could have been helped by learning from someone. I tried to do it yourself. And so I wasted a lot of time on that. And this is where, what I always tell people, if you can learn from someone else, and which is what I did. I ended up enrolling in Amy Porterfield's course. And that's how I learned for my second course a lot of things that I didn't for my first course. And so you always end up paying in time or money if you try to do everything yourself. So it was definitely a really great investment. So the first course ended up breaking even, but also because I really didn't know how to market it properly. I put too much information inside the course. So that's the part where I'm saying it wasn't, this course didn't make $1 million, I'm just going to stop doing courses. No. What happened? Assess the problem. You really have to approach your courses not like an artist. This is not a Van Gogh. You have to be, okay, what didn't work? Let me fix that. You have to approach this stuff as a business owner and really be non-emotional with your courses. If a course doesn't work, we had a course that we retired last year, or maybe no longer than that. That was called Digital Marketing Boss, that I loved, but it stopped getting traction. So I retired it because I don't really have time to have courses that aren't really delivering. And so what we have now, which is our most successful course today, the CEO course, we really double down on that. And so what people sometimes want to do, they want to fix what's not working instead of double down on what's working and dropping what's not working. And so that part is really important. For me, it was after 2 years, we stopped doing services, one-on-one coaching calls. We don't do any of that, and we only have courses. And so it took like 2 years in order for that profitability to be at the same rate as when I was in corporate.
For me, I actually experienced profitability after about a year. I actually started focusing more on memberships. So I started with the idea of creating courses, but I realized for my audience, memberships would be better. And they also would create this stability each month, knowing the amount of money that was going to come in. And what I did was the course material I had, I just turned it into a membership and added on monthly live calls, added on this community. So for the students that were enrolling in the course, they got the course material plus this ongoing service. And I also continued to add lessons. So When I turned my course into an actual membership and focused on the memberships, that's when I started seeing profit. And within a year, I was seeing profit. And each year it kind of doubled. So memberships have really worked well for me on the Teachable platform.
So interesting to hear you all talk about how you're supplementing the different product types, right? Because I think that everyone uses them in different ways. And so it's always just so fascinating, particularly from a product perspective, just to hear how they're being leveraged and what has worked. And Carole, I think you made a great point too, just around, being able to like detach from the content, right? And sunset something when it is time to do so. Certainly, I think you can get attached to your content. You spend a lot of time on it. It's a topic that you love. And so I think that's a great business model as well. Awesome. Next question that I have for you all. Would love to hear if you have a formula that you follow for course length relative to pricing. So in terms of the amount of content that you're offering relative to the price that you're selling it at, how are you all thinking about that?
For me, course length has nothing to do with pricing. Pricing has to do with transformation. If anything, the shorter the course, the more you can charge because it's distilled information that is really going to help someone get that transformation with less time. And so a lot of people think like, if I have more modules, I can charge more. That's not how it works. And so you need to think about first, who are you going to be targeting in your marketing? And so one type of audience is people who value their time. Those are usually the ones who pay the best. People who value their time really, really want things quick, easy, and they want results fast. And so your course needs to be priced on two things, in my opinion. At least it's how we've done it in our experience. You need to see, price elasticity. What is the market offering? What's out there? What is not just because people talk about UVP, your unique value proposition, but even more than that, what is your unmatched value proposition? How can you make this course different so that then pricing doesn't even become an option to compare it with, because you're offering something that doesn't even exist. And so for me, it was the live sessions. Like no one's offering that for business owners. And so what is the transformation that you can offer really is how you should really price your product. A lot of people going to, again, very emotional things. Pay me what I'm worth. No one cares what you're worth. You really have to charge based on what the results you're going to deliver for people. This isn't about you. This is about them. And so that has been our pricing strategy, which has worked really well.
I think for me, you also need to know your audience. So if you're working with business owners, yes, drive that price higher. If you're working with individuals that may be of a lower income, but you still want to serve them, find a price that is something they can afford, maybe a little bit above that, but something that you'd be okay with and that also works for your audience. So focusing again on the value you're providing, but also keeping in mind the audience that you specifically are trying to serve and the problems that they have. So for example, in my industry, I'm working with English learners from all around the world. Some are from third world countries, some are living in America. They're all of different backgrounds and financial status. So also having different levels. So you might have an entry program versus the other program that is your highest priced item. So focusing on the value you're providing, but also keeping in mind the audience and who you're serving and what your end goal is. Sometimes your goal might be, I want to serve this group of people. This is the number that I can handle, so I can charge a higher price because these individuals will get the most value from what I'm trying to provide, and I can give the most time to this number. But if you can spread it out more to a larger group, then you can drop the price a little bit. So again, it depends on your audience and what you want to do for them. And I'd also say when it comes to creating courses, I think it's also important for individuals to focus on what problem you are literally trying to solve for your audience. Pick one problem, focus on that problem, find a specific solution, and break it down into steps. Something that I like to do is break things down into simple steps to really solve the problem that your audience is having. And when you can solve that problem, then you can charge the price that you'd like.
I have not a whole lot to add here. The only thing that I would say to kind of put some terminology to a lot of what Carole and Tiffani are saying, I think a lot about customer selection and how important that is for you as a creator. It's understanding your audience, yes, if you have one, but also you have some agency around selecting for the type of audience that you want to attract and create. In Tiffani's circumstance, she could probably create a course that's $10,000, and that would attract some customer. Maybe it's not the customer that she has today. Maybe it's not the customer she wants to solve for or serve. So pricing in a lot of ways is in and of itself a marketing tool and a filter for the type of audience that you want to serve. And you need to understand that audience really well.
Y'all, this has been awesome. Really appreciate having you join us, Tiffani, Jay, Carole. We are super lucky to have you on Teachable, and I personally am really glad that I got the chance to chat with you all today. But again, really appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone.